Well, hello there. How are you doing? No, how are you doing? No, how are you doing? No, how are you doing? Well, I hope you're doing okay. So, what's up? Oh, okay. So, we're gonna build a D&D character, right? Today's the day. So you wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons with me. I haven't played in so long, so I'm kind of nervous to be a DM, honestly, but I think that we can learn this whole process together. So recently I was at my local game store. It's called the Bearded Dragon, Bearded Dragon, Bearded Dragon, Bearded Dragon. And I picked up a few things for us. The first thing, though, of course, are dice. Dice. Let's just shake them here. It's so fun to play with dice. I love dice. Dice are my weakness. They make such good noises and they're so colorful. So, I'm gonna have you actually pick a pair of dice. And it has all the dice you need in here, actually. It's a 7 dice set. It has like your D20s, your D10s, D6, of course, D12, D4. Whole bunch, everything you need to play, essentially. So I'm going to have you take a look at that. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't that pretty dope? And then, how about this one here? Nice gold set, gold metallic set. And then you got the hot pink here. They kind of look like candy. And then you got this orangish red here. That's like dice I would use in Magic the Gathering for my burn deck, something like that. It looks pretty cool, in my opinion. So which one would you like? Oh, okay, you're gonna go with the first pair, the green pair. The green pair. These. Nice. I'll just give those to you. Okay. Let me put the other dice away. I'm probably going to go with a hot pink myself. Hot pink is pretty dope. So, I'm a bit parched myself. I'm going to have some vitamin water here. Can I get you anything? Oh, you're good? Okay. Alright, so, also at that game store, I picked up something pretty cool. This is just one of the books I picked up, the D&D Player's Handbook. I also have a monster book and a book specifically for DMs. I think this thing looks pretty awesome, personally. I love it. I love the artwork. So let's go through this together, because I too need a refresher on the rules. And every D&D game I ever DM'd, it wasn't pure D&D. It was kind of like a variant on D&D that used D&D's basic rule set, like bare bones basic rule set, and I'd edit the rule set depending on how well it fit my game. So we're going to start off with Chapter 1, of course. Chapter 1, step-by-step characters. So let's read this. Your first step in playing an adventurer in the Dungeons and Dragons game is to imagine and create a character of your own. Your character is a combination of game statistics, role-playing hooks, and your imagination. You choose a race, such as human or halfling, and a class, such as fighter or wizard. You also invent the personality, appearance, and backstory of your character. Once completed, your character serves as your representative in the game, your avatar in the Dungeons & Dragons world. Before you dive into step 1 below, think about the kind of adventurer you want to play. You might be a courageous fighter, a skulking rogue, a fervent cleric, or a flamboyant wizard. Or you might be more interested in an unconventional character, such as a brawny rogue who likes hand-to-hand combat, or a sharpshooter who picks off enemies from afar. Do you like fantasy fiction featuring dwarves or elves? Try building a character of one of those races. Do you want your character to be the toughest adventurer at the table? Consider a class like barbarian or paladin. If you don't know where else to begin, take a look at the illustrations in this book to see what catches your interest. Once you have a character in mind, follow these steps in order, making decisions that reflect the character you want. Your conception of your character might evolve with each choice you make. What's important is that you come to the table with a character you're excited to play. Throughout this chapter, we use the term character sheet to mean whatever you use to track your character, whether it's a formal character sheet, like the one at the end of this book, some form of digital record, or a piece of notebook paper. An official D&D character sheet is a fine place to start until you know what information you need and how you use it during the game. And the book has examples of building a character called Bruenor. And the player is named Bob, and he's building his dwarf Bruenor. So step 1 is that we have to choose a race. That makes sense. Every character belongs to a race, one of the many intelligent humanoid species in the D&D world. The most common player character races are dwarves, elves, halflings, and humans. Some races also have sub-races, such as mountain dwarf or wood elf. Chapter 2 provides more information about these races, as well as the less widespread races of dragonborn, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, and tieflings. The race you choose contributes to your character's identity in an important way by establishing a general appearance and the natural talents gained from culture and ancestry. Your character's race grants particular racial traits, such as special senses, proficiency with certain weapons or tools, proficiency in one or more skills, or the ability to use minor spells. These traits sometimes dovetail with the capabilities of certain classes. For example, the racial traits of Lightfoot halflings make them exceptional rogues, and high elves tend to be powerful wizards. Sometimes playing against type can be fun too. Half-orc paladins and mountain dwarf wizards, for example, can be unusual but memorable characters. Your race also increases one or more of your ability scores, which you determine in step 3. Note these increases and remember to apply them later. Record the traits granted by your race on your character sheet. Be sure to note your starting languages and your base speed as well. Okay, so step 1, of course, is to find and pick a class. So let's go back to the index. And races are in chapter 2, which is on page 17. So let's turn to page 17. There we go. Chapter 2, races. A visit to one of the great cities in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, Waterdeep, the free city of Greyhawk, or even Uncanny Sigil, the city of doors, overwhelms the senses. Voices chatter in countless different languages. The smells of cooking in dozens of different cuisines mingle with the odors of crowded streets and poor sanitation. Buildings in myriad architectural styles display the diverse origins of their inhabitants. And the people themselves, people of varying size, shape, and color, dressed in a dazzling spectrum of styles and hues, represent many different races, from diminutive halflings and stout dwarves to majestically beautiful elves, mingling among a variety of human ethnicities. Scattered among the members of these more common races are the true exotics. A hulking dragonborn here, pushing his way through the crowd, and a sly tiefling there, lurking in the shadows with mischief in her eyes. A group of gnomes laughs as one of them activates a clever wooden toy that moves on its own accord. Half-elves and half-orcs live and work alongside humans without fully belonging to the races of either of their parents. And there, well out of the sunlight, is a lone drow, a fugitive from the subterranean expanse of the Underdark, trying to make his way in a world that fears his kind. Choosing a race. Humans are the most common people in the worlds of D&D, but they live and work alongside dwarves, elves, halflings, and countless other fantastic species. Your character belongs to one of these peoples. Not every intelligent race of the multiverse is appropriate for a player-controlled adventurer. Dwarves, elves, halflings, and humans are the most common races to produce the sort of adventurers who make up typical parties. Dragonborn, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, and tieflings are less common as adventurers. Drow, a sub-race of elves, are also uncommon. Your choice of race affects many different aspects of your character. It establishes fundamental qualities that exist throughout your character's adventuring career. When making this decision, keep in mind the kind of character you want to play. For example, a halfling could be a good choice for a sneaky rogue, a dwarf makes a tough warrior, and an elf can be a master of arcane magic. Your character race not only affects your ability scores and traits, but also provides the cues for building your character's story. Each race's description in this chapter includes information to help you roleplay a character of that race, including personality, physical appearance, features of society, and racial alignment tendencies. These details are suggestions to help you think about your character. Adventurers can deviate widely from the norm for their race. It's worthwhile to consider why your character is different, as a helpful way to think about your character's background and personality. Racial traits. The description of each race include racial traits that are common to members of that race. The following entries appear among the traits of most races. Ability score increase. Every race increases one or more of a character's ability scores. Age. The age entry notes the age when a member of the race is considered an adult, as well as the race's expected lifespan. This information can help you decide how old your character is at the start of the game. You can choose any age for your character, which could provide an explanation for some of your ability scores. For example, if you play a young or very old character, your age could explain a particularly low strength or constitution score, while advanced age could account for a high intelligence or wisdom. Alignment. Most races have tendencies towards certain alignments, described in this entry. These are not binding for player characters, but considering why your dwarf is chaotic, for example, in defiance of lawful dwarf society, can help you better define your character. Size. Characters of most races are medium, a size category including creatures that are roughly 4 to 8 feet tall. Members of a few races are small, between 2 and 4 feet tall, which means that certain rules of the game affect them differently. The most important of these rules is that small characters have trouble wielding heavy weapons, as explained in Chapter 5, Equipment. Speed. Your speed determines how far you can move when traveling. Chapter 8, Adventuring, and Fighting, Chapter 9, Combat. Languages. By virtue of your race, your character can speak, read, and write certain languages. Chapter 4, Personality and Background, lists the most common languages of the D&D multiverse. Subraces. Some races have subraces. Members of a subrace have the traits of the parent race in addition to the traits specified for their subrace. Relationships among subraces vary significantly from race to race and world to world. In the Dragonlance campaign setting, for example, mountain dwarves and hill dwarves live together as different clans of the same people, but in the Forgotten Realms, they live far apart in separate kingdoms and call themselves shield dwarves and gold dwarves, respectively. So this is the page for the dwarf. In there is a picture of the mighty dwarf. Dwarf. "You're late, elf," came the rough edge of a familiar voice. Bruenor Battlehammer walked up the back of his dead foe, disregarding the fact that the heavy monster lay on top of his elven friend. In spite of the added discomfort, the dwarf's long, pointed, often broken nose and gray-streaked, though still fiery red beard came as a welcome sight to Drizzt. "Knew I'd find ye in trouble if I came out and looked for ye." That was by R.A. Salvatore from the Crystal Shard. Kingdoms rich in ancient grandeur. Halls carved into the roots of mountains, the echoing of picks and hammers in deep mines and blazing forges, a commitment to clan and tradition, and a burning hatred of goblins and orcs. These common threads unite all dwarves. Short and stout, bold and hardy, dwarves are known as skilled warriors, miners, and workers of stone and metal. Though they stand well under 5 feet tall, dwarves are so broad and compact that they can weigh as much as a human standing nearly 2 feet taller. Their courage and endurance are also easily a match for any of the larger folk. Dwarven skin ranges from deep brown to a paler hue tinged with red, but the most common shades are light brown or deep tan, like certain tones of earth. Their hair, worn long but in simple styles, is usually black, gray, or brown, though paler dwarves often have red hair. Male dwarves value their beards highly and groom them carefully. Long memory, long grudges. Dwarves can live to be more than 400 years old, so the oldest living dwarves often remember a very different world. For example, some of the oldest dwarves living in Citadel Feldbar, in the world of the Forgotten Realms, can recall the day, more than 3 centuries ago, when orcs conquered the fortress and drove them into an exile that lasted over 250 years. This longevity grants them a perspective on the world that shorter-lived races such as humans and halflings lack. Dwarves are solid and enduring like the mountains they love, weathering the passage of centuries with stoic endurance and little change. They respect the traditions of their clans, tracing their ancestry back to the founding of their most ancient strongholds in the youth of the world, and don't abandon those traditions lightly. Part of those traditions is devotion to the gods of the dwarves, who uphold the dwarven ideals of industrious labor, skill in battle, and devotion to the forge. Individual dwarves are determined and loyal, true to their word and decisive in action, sometimes to the point of stubbornness. Many dwarves have a strong sense of justice, and they are slow to forget wrongs they have suffered. A wrong done to one dwarf is a wrong done to the dwarf's entire clan, so what begins as one dwarf's hunt for vengeance can become a full-blown clan feud. Clans and kingdoms. Dwarven kingdoms stretch deep beneath the mountains, where the dwarves mine gems and precious metals and forge items of wonder. They love the beauty and artistry of precious metals and fine jewelry, and in some dwarves this love festers into avarice. Whatever wealth they can't find in their mountains, they gain through trade. They dislike boats, so enterprising humans and halflings frequently handle trade in dwarven goods along water routes. Trustworthy members of other races are welcome in dwarf settlements, though some areas are off limits even to them. The chief unit of dwarven society is the clan, and dwarves highly value social standing. Even dwarves who live far from their own kingdoms cherish their clan identities and affiliations, recognize related dwarves, and evoke their ancestors' names in oaths and curses. To be clanless is the worst fate that can befall a dwarf. Dwarves in other lands are typically artisans, especially weaponsmiths, armorers, and jewelers. Some become mercenaries or bodyguards, highly sought after for their courage and loyalty. Gods, gold, and clan. Dwarves who take up the adventuring life might be motivated by a desire for treasure, for its own sake, for a specific purpose, or even out of an altruistic desire to help others. Other dwarves are driven by the command of inspiration of a deity, a direct calling, or simply a desire to bring glory to one of the dwarf gods. Clan and ancestry are also important motivators. A dwarf might seek to restore a clan's lost honor, avenge an ancient wrong the clan suffered, or earn a new place within the clan after having been exiled. Or a dwarf might search for the axe wielded by a mighty ancestor, lost on the field of battle centuries ago. Slow to trust. Dwarves get along passably well with most other races. The difference between an acquaintance and a friend is about 100 years, is a dwarf saying that might be hyperbole, but certainly points to how difficult it can be for a member of a short-lived race like humans to earn a dwarf's trust. Elves. It's not wise to depend on the elves, no telling what an elf will do next. When the hammer meets the orc's head, they're as apt to start singing as to pull out a sword. They're flighty and frivolous. Two things to be said for them, though. They don't have many smiths, but the ones they have do very fine work. And when orcs or goblins come streaming down out of the mountains, an elf's good to have at your back. Not as good as a dwarf, maybe, but no doubt they hate the orcs as much as we do. Halflings. Sure, they're pleasant folk, but show me a halfling hero, an empire, a triumphant army, even a treasure for the ages made by halfling hands. Nothing. How can you take them seriously? Humans. You take the time to get to know a human, and by then the human's on her deathbed. If you're lucky, she's got kin, a daughter or granddaughter maybe, who's got hands and heart as good as hers. That's when you can make a human friend, and watch them go. They set their hearts on something, they'll get it, whether it's a dragon horde or an empire's throne. You have to admire that kind of dedication, even if it gets them in trouble more often than not. Dwarf names. A dwarf's name is granted by a clan elder, in accordance with tradition. Every proper dwarven name has been used and reused down through the generations. A dwarf's name belongs to the clan, not to the individual. A dwarf who misuses or brings shame to a clan name is stripped of the name and forbidden by law to use any dwarven name in its place. Male names. Adric, Alberic, Baron, Barond, Brotor. What's that? Okay, you don't need to nail all the names. Okay, that's fine. Maybe the clan names are important, though. Baldurk, Battlehammer, Braun Anvil, Dankill, Fireforge, Frostbeard, Gordon, Holderheck, Iron Fist, Loder, Lutger, Rumnaheim, Strakeln, Torin, Ungert. Dwarf Traits. Your dwarf character has an assortment of inborn abilities, part and parcel of dwarven nature. Ability score increase. Your constitution score increases by 2. Age. Dwarves mature at the same rate as humans, but they're considered young until they reach the age of 50. On average, they live about 350 years. Alignment. Most dwarves are lawful, believing firmly in the benefits of a well-ordered society. They tend toward good as well, with a strong sense of fair play and a belief that everyone deserves to share in the benefits of a just order. Size. Dwarfs stand between 4 and 5 feet tall and average about 150 pounds. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 25 feet. Your speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor. Dark vision. Accustomed to life underground, you have superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see a dim light within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. You can't discern color in darkness, only shades of gray. Dwarven Resilience. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage, explained in Chapter 9, Combat. Dwarven Combat Training. You have proficiency with the battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer. Tool Proficiency. You gain proficiency with the artisan's tools of your choice, smith's tools, brewer's supplies, or mason's tools. Stone Cunning. Whenever you make an intelligence or history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Dwarvish. Dwarvish is full of hard consonants and guttural sounds, and those characteristics spill over into whatever other language a dwarf might speak. Subrace. 2 main subraces of dwarves populate the worlds of D&D. Hill dwarves and mountain dwarves. Choose one of these subraces. Hill dwarf. As a hill dwarf, you have keen senses, deep intuition, and remarkable resilience. The gold dwarves of Faerun in their mighty southern kingdom are hill dwarves, as are the exiled Nidar and the debased Clar of Kryn and in the Dragonlance setting. Ability score increase. Your wisdom score increases by 1. Dwarven toughness. Your hit point maximum increases by 1, and it increases by 1 every time you gain a level. Mountain dwarf. As a mountain dwarf, you're strong and hardy, accustomed to a difficult life in rugged terrain. You're probably on the tall side for a dwarf, and tend toward lighter coloration. The shield dwarves of northern Faerun, as well as the ruling Hylar clan and the noble Daiwar clan of Dragonlance, are mountain dwarves. Ability score increase. Your strength score increases by 2. Dwarven armor training. You have proficiency with light and medium armor. Duragar. In cities deep in the Underdark live the Durgar, or Grey Dwarves. These vicious, stealthy slave traders raid the surface world for captives, then sell their prey to the other races of the Underdark. They have innate magical abilities to become invisible and to temporarily grow to giant size. So, does the dwarf sound interesting to you? I understand maybe you wish to read through the rest of the races. What are the other races? Well, you have elf. And let's keep turning. You have halflings. That's like Frodo Baggins. Humans. Dragonborn. Which is not apparently like, as you can see from the picture, it's not like Skyrim. Although if we're playing a Skyrim campaign, it obviously will be. You have gnomes, half elves, half orcs, tieflings. And that is it for the base classes. Of course, depending on what game I choose to run with, we could have different or more classes, of course. So, without getting into it, does the dwarf sound good to you? Or do you want to hear more about some other races? The dwarf sounds good to you. Okay, well that's good. So let's write that down in our handy dandy notebook. because I don't want to write in this book itself, because it's a nice book and I don't want to ruin it. Okay. So you haven't decided on a name yet. That's fine. But you do want to be a dwarf. So let's write that down. You want to be a dwarf. Okay. And the dwarf traits, ability score increase, so your constitution score increases by 2. So let's just write that down. Constitution plus 2. Okay. Age, dwarfs mature at the same rate as humans, like I said. They're considered young until they reach 50. They live about 350 years. So what would you like for age? 70? Okay. Seems like a nice age to roll with. Alright, alignment. Dwarves are lawful, believing firmly in the benefits of a well-ordered society. And they also tend toward good. Of course, you are welcome to pick whatever alignment you want. Oh, okay, so you're going to go with something a little different. Okay, alignment. And what would that alignment be exactly? Chaotic neutral, okay. Chaotic neutral. That's a good alignment. I love the chaotic neutral. Very, very cerebral. All right. Size. Generally, dwarves are about 4 to 5 feet tall and average about 150 pounds. What would you like? Yeah, you can go with a bigger dwarf if you want to. 6 feet tall, okay. That's fine. As long as you can, explain that, why he's 6 feet tall, or she is 6 feet tall, whatever. Oh, that's interesting. Strange genetic variant caused by exposure to magic. Oh, okay. All right. And weight, about 200 pounds. Okay, so this is a beefy dwarf. Okay, very beefy. I might give you a bit of a penalty when it comes to agility, however. We'll see. Speed, your base walking speed is 25 feet. Speed is not reduced by wearing armor, so let's write down speed. And I'm going to put you down for the base. And I'm going to give you a penalty of 2. Because you're beefier. Okay. You have dark vision. Dark vision. So you have, you can see in dim light within 60 feet. Dim light as bright, 60 feet. And you can see in darkness as if it were dim light. Darkness as dim. Okay. And Dwarven Resilience, you have an advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have a resistance against poison damage. So let's write that down. Dwarven Resilience. Advantage on saving throws against poison. Saving throws. Against poison. And you have a resistance against poison damage. Resistance against poison damage. What does advantage mean? It means that instead of rolling one die for your saving throws, you roll 2 and take the higher of the 2. Disadvantage means you roll 2 and take the lower. Okay, so Dwarven Combat training. Dwarven Combat training. Proficiency with battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and warhammer. So we'll just write those down. Battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and warhammer. Okay. Tool proficiency. You gain proficiency with the artisan's tools of your choice. Smiths, brewers, or masons. So which one would you like? Smiths? Smiths, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think that's the right choice. Tool proficiency. Smith's tools. Okay. Stone cunning. Whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Okay. So we'll write down stone cunning and write a little note. History checks related to the origin of stonework on stonework origin get double proficiency bonus. Excellent. Okay. Languages. You can speak, read, write Common and Dwarvish. Languages. Common and Dwarvish. All right. Subrace. Now, do you want to be a hill dwarf or a mountain dwarf? Mountain dwarf? Okay. Mountain dwarf. All right, and as a mountain dwarf, you get a +2 to strength score. So strength. +2. And you also get Dwarven armor training, so you have a proficiency with light and medium armor. So let's write that down. Dwarven armor training. You can use light and medium armor. I'm also going to give you a size bonus to help counteract your loss of speed. So I'm going to give you an extra +1 to Constitution and an extra +1 to Strength because you're a big, meaty dwarf. Okay, and that should do it in terms of the basics, in terms of at least choosing a race. So, any questions? No? Oh, okay, very well then. Excellent. So, next time we will continue building your character, and I'm going to let you actually borrow the player's handbook so that maybe you can do some research yourself. And when you come back to me, we can, if you don't have anything filled out, we can do it together. And if you do, I could just go over some stuff with you and give you a few tips so that way you can have fun in our game. All right, well, I hope that you've had a great time, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye for now. Goodbye. Subscribe.